Hey, kids! Is there such a thing as too much money? Is capitalism the source of all your problems? Are you, totally moving to Canada if a Republican wins the presidential election? Then have I got a candidate for you! No, but really, we need to have a serious talk about Bernie. This is an intervention for all the young people. But Egyptian, Bernie's against war. You don't want the imperialist Republicans to start another war, do you? Well, I do think war is pretty stupid most of the time, unless it's absolutely necessary. And I know Bernie loves to bring up how he voted against the war in Iraq, but when it comes to his claim of being anti-war, he's not being totally honest. See, Bernie has spent most of his career in the House and Senate voting with the Democrats, and that includes measures related to war. In fact, since Obama took office, Bernie has voted to fund the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan multiple times. He's also voted for the National Defense Authorization Act, which infamously contained the indefinite detention clauses, and he voted yes on a resolution promoting regime change in Libya. Not a direct war per se, but the resulting U.S. interventions did help lead to the whole ISIS situation. And that doesn't really bode well for the situation in Syria, considering Bernie talks about Assad basically the same way all the other candidates do. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like Assad is a great guy, but just look at Libya and Iraq and see what happens when you take out dictators and destabilize their countries. He's also said that he would not end the drone strike program. And this is all just in recent memory. Back in 1999, he voted in favor of bombing Kosovo under Clinton. One of his staffers even quit over it. But here's what I consider to be the real cherry on top. Bernie Sanders supported the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. For those who don't know, the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is the most expensive piece of military hardware in the history of the world. And it doesn't even work. This piece of shit is so expensive, it accounts for 8% of the national debt by itself. And not only is it not ready for combat, it's not even ready for combat training. The thing can't fly in close formation or do the basic aerobatics that would normally be included in transition training for fighter pilots. Even things as basic as the lightning protection system still don't work properly. It can't even fly at night or in cloudy weather. I wish I was fucking joking, I really do. $1.5 trillion for a plane that's been in development for over a decade and still doesn't fucking work. There's a laundry list of issues with this thing, literally hundreds of problems, too many for me to list here in point of time. More than 100 have been built now, and none of them are airworthy, not a single one. We have all these perfectly good fighter planes just laying around, fighter planes that are still better than everyone else's, and yet Bernie Sanders voted for this fucking abortion of an aircraft just so he could create jobs in Vermont. Anti-war, cut military spending, my fucking dick. But Bernie wants to give everyone free college and healthcare. What, you mean like every other country on Earth? Yeah, college is a basic human right. Oh, well that's sweet of you, but those other countries don't really guarantee college as a basic human right, and they don't give it to everyone who wants it. They give it to their best and brightest, their highest achievers. I mean, even a relatively poor country like Egypt was able to give my dad a free college education, but the only reason he got that for free was because he did really well in primary and secondary school. If they gave it to everyone who wanted it, they wouldn't be able to finance those programs, because really, who's going to turn down a free offer? And I've never heard anybody, not even Bernie himself, explain his plan in relation to degree inflation. We're already in a situation where degrees are becoming so saturated, nearly half of college graduates have difficulty finding gainful employment. The laws of supply and demand don't just apply to products and services, they apply to degrees and the job market as well. This article goes on to say that technical degrees and skilled trades and the like are in high demand right now, but millennials tend not to study those things. So it's not as simple as just giving everyone free college. The culture of college and people's choices are going to have to change. People are going to have to start studying more useful subjects that are actually in demand in the employment market. If the trends don't change, then throwing money at it just adds fuel to the fire. Not to mention that between free college and free healthcare, Bernie's plan would have to significantly increase taxes for everyone. Vox.com of all websites put out a tax calculator, and it seems that no matter what you enter, your taxes would go up under Bernie's plan. You could be poor as shit, or you could be around the median income. We all know he wants to tax the rich more, but this is the kind of thing he has to be goaded into admitting on TV.
If you are paying now $10,000 a year to a private health insurance company, and I say to you hypothetically, you're going to pay $5,000 more in taxes, or actually less than that, but you're not going to pay any more private health insurance, are you going to be complaining about the fact that I've saved you $5,000 in your total bills?
But you're not going to pay any more private health insurance.
So how the hell would this work? Does he want to make private health insurance companies illegal? Does he want to just totally ban them? Is he going to nationalize them and absorb them into some kind of government agency? What? Like, I don't understand how he's going to achieve this. I've heard the expression Medicare for all before, and I understand that Bernie essentially wants to just expand Medicare for everyone. But I went to his campaign website and looked at the full plan, and I couldn't find any explanation of how he plans to get rid of private insurance companies. In fact, doing Control F for the word private only turned up 2 results in the entire page, and they're just about how much people are paying for private insurance. There's literally no explanation of how he's actually going to get rid of private insurance companies. So I'm basically left to assume that they would be made illegal or absorbed into Medicare for all or something. How would this get through Congress? And even if it did, what's going to happen to all those jobs? I mean, I understand that other countries do this, but how do you convert an economy of this size with a population of this size to a system like that? I'm definitely not an economist, but I just don't feel like this has been explained fully or explained at all, really. It just seems like, yeah, we're going to make healthcare free for everyone. We're going to make college free for everyone, and it's going to be great, so vote for Bernie. But Bernie wants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Well, again, I'm no economist, but the general argument against raising the minimum wage is that it'll reduce incentive for employers to create jobs. And in some areas where they have raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, they have seen a decrease in jobs and an increase in unemployment. So what would be the implications of doing this on a national scale? If we would just end up with a bunch of people getting fired or fewer jobs being created, then how would it really even make a difference? But what about Bernie's fight for equality and social justice? He marched in the civil rights movement, you know. Yeah, and for the time period, that is laudable, but now he campaigns with Killer Mike, a rapper who literally sings about killing cops and white people.
My thuggers and my cripples and my blooders and my brothers. When you niggas gon' unite and kill the police, motherfuckers. When you niggas gon' unite and kill the police, motherfuckers.
If you found your way to this channel, you either know someone who's opposed to political correctness, or maybe you are someone who's opposed to political correctness. Some of you may be Bernie supporters who are opposed to the narrative of political correctness. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't like social justice warriors, you have to know that Bernie Sanders is a social justice warrior candidate. He panders to feminists who still think that women are oppressed in Western countries.
I want every man in this room to stand with the women of this country, demand pay equity.
Some of the real heroes, well, heroines, in our country today are single moms. And frankly, I do not know how single moms do what they do.
He plays the race card.
When you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car. And I believe that as a nation in the year 2016, we must be firm in making it clear. We will end institutional racism.
Now, when I heard Bernie say this, I got curious and I went and looked at the numbers. So here on the left, you see U.S. poverty rates by race and Hispanic or Latino origin. And on the right, you see population demographics. The chart on the left doesn't give specific exact percentages, but I kind of just eyeballed it and came up with the following. Based on those numbers, there are nearly 24 million white people who are considered to be in poverty in the United States. You might say, oh, well, the black and Latino poverty rates are disproportionately high compared to white people, but I would think that if your platform is we need to end poverty and we need to lift people out of poverty, you wouldn't particularly care what color those people in poverty are. You would just care about the poor, right? So here's another statement by Bernie Sanders on poverty.
How does it happen that despite a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, we have 47 million people in this country living in poverty? What this campaign is about, and we say it loudly and proudly, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us.
All of us.
The only way Bernie could possibly arrive at that 47 million number would be to include all the white people who live in poverty as well. And yet he will happily shit out the other side of his mouth to pander to the black community and pander to Black Lives Matter, while simultaneously denigrating white people and saying that they have white privilege. Speaking of, do Black Lives matter?
My question for the candidates is, do Black Lives matter or do all lives matter?
Let's put that question to Senator Sanders. Black lives matter. And the reason those words matter is the African American community knows that on any given day, some innocent person like Sandra Bland can get into a car, and then 3 days later she's going to end up dead in jail, or their kids are going to get shot. We need to combat institutional racism from top to bottom, and we need major reforms in a broken criminal justice system.
Now let me be clear.
I'm not saying that police brutality isn't a problem or that the criminal justice system doesn't need reform in this country. Obviously it does. But the problem arises when you racialize the issue and try to make it about white people keeping black people down. Again, just like with the poverty issue, just because one group is disproportionately affected doesn't mean that you should ignore another group who are still a significant portion of the issue. White people are still the majority of people who are affected by police brutality and death by police. In fact, a recent study found that police officers are actually more hesitant to shoot a black suspect than they are a white suspect because of the public response and media backlash that invariably results from the former. It's often said that black people are disproportionately killed by police, and this is true, but the same people who always say that conveniently ignore the fact that black people also commit a disproportionate amount of violent crime. But I'm sure this is in no way related. And if you want to throw the word racist around, just remember...
Forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings.
So in closing, I just want to mention something about the term democratic socialism. How is this not an oxymoron? For something to be democratic, it requires democratic participation, doesn't it? And through the course of this election, we've seen that not even the majority of Democrats want what Bernie calls democratic socialism, much less voters in general. I mean, only about a third of Americans vote to start with, so that's already a minority of the country. And once socialism is instituted, it ceases to be democratic by nature, because you have central planning of the economy until such theoretical point that the government relinquishes its control and dissolves itself, handing power back to the people. But we all know that that's never ever happened in any attempt at socialism or communism. I've actually heard Bernie Sanders say that the US is already pretty socialist, and I would argue that that's kind of the problem. We've moved away from something tried and true that we know is functional, that thing being capitalism, and we become more and more socialist and given the government more and more regulatory control over the economy and over our lives, and Bernie wants to do more of that. So really, he's not a political revolutionary. He's just saying, expand what we already have, do more of the same, and make it bigger. But why aren't you doing a video about that big meanie-faced, misogynist, racist, homophobic, KKK, neo-Nazi, literally Hitler Donald Trump? Oh, don't you worry, Bernie dog. I will be getting to that soon, because we all know that criticism of Donald Trump is in short supply. Something, a handful of millionaires and billionaires.
I know,